Good evening, seekers. This is Black Pope Vice. I am reporting from the cemetery. I'm about to exit it. Kind of want to do, or I have to do a retake of yesterday's video because it didn't work. So let me just exit the cemetery quickly. Feyu Kenaz A was Kenaz T was El Hazunyo A was Athala. Feyu Kenaz A was Kenaz T was El Hazunyo A was E was. So if you read William Gray's book, he will William Gray's book, Magic Ritual Methods, he will talk about how to use the tools, wands, cups, swords, and discuses. And with a wand, you can open and close doors and boundaries to other worlds. I've been terraforming the cemetery a long time. I've talked about that, just burying the cemetery. Burying candles in the cemetery. I was bringing offerings to the whites, stuff like that. And right over here, we get to habitation circle. You kind of see the grass. It's a little greener in the center, despite the fact that the rest is kind of really just brown. Anyway, this is a black Seelie. I assume it is a banshee. Banshees are, from what it seems like, according to the mythologies, they are essentially a user face for a human's ability to commune with the death cult of the mound builders in ancient Ireland. So I've talked about this before. The mound builders had very similar theories about the nature of the fairies that the Japanese have on the kami, as in that these beings are a result of the radioactive decay of humans when they're getting old and really dying, and then they die, and then there's just all this energy left around that is still there, and it has to change into something. And these things used to be more visible. And I think one of the things to make these whites come back is doing food offerings, kinds of other little trinket things. Because we as quantum witness machines imagine reality. If we are taking the time to ritualistically entertain beings that are there, how will they not become more and more? Like more and more tangible material capable of doing things, interacting with our environment. So yeah, I'm in PG&E territory. You're cutting stuff down. I cut all this area down. I don't know why, but there's whites here. There were bird whites, flying whites, right here, and now they're gone. And they probably have another home, but still, I didn't get that feeling yesterday, and I still just don't get it today. That would be nice, but we know what they're doing to our environment, to our ecosystem. They're monsters. Anyway, so back to kind of really talking about the subject matter of this video, rather than just kind of talking things about the way, since we've got time before we get to the next area I wanted to showcase, is I want to start making videos weekly, kind of in the field research, so I can kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing and how you should be interacting and engaging with your environment. Now, I technically visited the forest 2 days in a row, and normally I'd bring gifts, but the first time I'm coming through, kind of want to give a lowdown of stuff. Look at how much time we have left. We're doing pretty well. Okay. yeah, because I like to do gift giving and stuff, but right now, I need to focus on this video more so, and that subject matter, which is, I've never walked this way, so I want to talk about this way. So, we're approaching a large area. It's a large interface, and it seems kind of really, when you see areas like this, and you kind of come out in a forest park, and you see big areas like this, just think of it as like, as a video game, in the sense that this is a big junction for many different pathways. I have a video about pathways in the forest, and as much as I think people hike and stuff through the forest, I've basically, I used to go to the forest every day with my sister, and I'll show you where that pathway is in a moment. But it basically emerged like overnight. I'm actually going to sit in the shade. So, over here is an electrical power grid that I personally have experimented with creating, not intentionally, mind you, but electrical lights. Now, I think they have the ability to, they, as in the feds, have an ability to disturb things with electricity, but I think we can utilize this to our advantage. Electrical lights exist, and they can totally, I've seen this, mess with electronic stuff. Right? You want to know how we can harass things? We get electronic lights. So, electrical lights, there's a means about how these beings can escape our view, because they're in electricity. How would we notice them? How would we notice the water creatures? Water creatures do not like fire. So like, for instance, this one right here, when I was experimenting with candle magic, so I had a lantern and I was trying to figure out the abilities of creatures in the environment, and I'd used 3 different candle colors to figure out, offensive, defensive, and supportive abilities associated with particular whites. And the fire would increase or decrease in intensity or healthiness, and healthiness doesn't necessarily mean big flame, because like a big flame that's flickering, which is what happened for this lovely water white, was an indication she didn't like it. Now, water whites are all over the place, because, it rains from the sky. Apparently this area might have been underwater hundreds of millions of years ago, and, and they're pretty easy to transport. The ones that are pretty easy to transport, they'll have interesting quest lines to unlock them. Of course, as always, there's legendaries, but they have, bigger quest lines to, befriend them, essentially, And I don't think I really have to explain how gods and Gaiden escape our view. Alright. Now let's talk about bugs and vampires. I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, bugs. Bugs are definitely a type of white. In many ways, it's probably an incredible correspondence to what the Shintoist propaganda campaign known as Pokemon has developed. These Pokemon types. No, I don't think it's complete. I think they have to add Celestial and Vampiric. Maybe they'll add more, but those are only 2 things I can think of at the moment. But yeah, that's another way the bugs evade our attention. The vampiric bugs. Very cool. Bugs are great because they have various abilities. And in general, you just want to kind of pay squeeze of them so they don't mess with your stuff. They're also very helpful too. Now I'm going to actually show probably the most dangerous part in a little bit. Now, there's the various types of Fae subspecies and near species. Like, I would definitely say something like a pixie is not a true Fae. White, green, or black Seelie. Or it's definitely not an Unseelie, which is the winter and fall phase, are more nasty. But these guys will steal. Just for the lulz, which is hysterical. So, I hope they didn't hear that. They heard that. You better not steal from me. Behave yourselves. Yeah, so I have, like an intuitive, like a communication white I use. Though mine's not a spider white, you know. Grandmother Spider is a very, very powerful deity being, you know. Care for her children and they'll whisper you things that are relevant. You know, I think, you know, people talk about, like, oh, you can only use the whites for fighting and stuff. It's like, well, what if you use the spider whites to spy? To communicate. To deal with the parasites in your garden. And we're coming up to the spiders. Now, these ladies are lovely, but they're very tsunder. So, it might be a new kind of spider, because yesterday I was mentioning it's way steeper than it used to be, this incline. Like, especially right here. I don't ever remember being this steep over here. But I used to walk over here. I'm not going to go into this area because I'll fall down, because they like to do that. Yeah, this is just so steep. Yeah, maybe more trapdoorish this time around, because the other ones were more. The poison oak on that tree used to be very vibrant until I collected a lady named A Star of Hope, which is the name she chose for herself. You know, sometimes the whites will name themselves things like A Star of Hope, or, you know, they'll pick Hebrew names. You know, it's very funny. But they'll come up with various names. So yeah, how much time do we have left? Oh, okay, we got 10 minutes. We are doing very, very well. I think if I haul it, I might be able to make it to the top and, like, talk about that, because I would like to do that. So, I'm moving, I'm hauling butt. By the way, I'm wearing a suit, and it's a hot day, because I want to dress up. I like dressing up. You know, dress for the job you want, and currently, I can't dress like a dandy or warlock quite yet. Yeah, my robes aren't. They're very necromancy. I need some fresh stuff. I'm working on it. I have a lovely witch seamstress working on something. But, yeah, we need costumes. I think costumes are very important, especially if you're beginning, because then you feel empowered to do stuff. Okay, so this area kind of reminded me to talk about what to look for besides, you know, habitation circles. So when you get to certain areas, they become more colorful. Now, I don't want to say this is necessarily the particular place I'm speaking of, because it's usually easier to tell after the rains, because there's just extra resources, and there's ample resources in the environment that can be utilized even more, like a tree's maximum efficiency in the chlorophyll could be utilized when there's more resources around. Because there's maybe about a mile away, there's a boundary area where you can see the difference between where the normal forest ends and the magic forest begins. And it's just visually greener. Like, it's just like, you just look at it and you're like, all those trees are greener. And the only correspondence we can make is if we assume there is a boundary here between this type of forest and this type of forest. There's no differentiation, speciation. It just has to do with the color. We have to assume there's energy beings influencing the efficiency of the plant life, the organism, because it's an ecosystem. It's cooperative. Now, as I kind of alluded to the beautification of Midgard, you know, it's a shaping process, you know. What would goblins, orcs, and ogres typing be? Would they be fighting? Would they be normal? How would they have survived? Well, we talk about shape-shifting abilities and decorporalization, or maybe perhaps even just being pure electricity. You know, like as a means of escaping attention. But what about shrinking in size and becoming herbivorous? Maybe that's how various classical, very tokenish villains have made it to the modern era. Maybe they could shapeshift into, you know, animals, like deer. What if a lot of goblins are shapeshifting deer? Because there's goblins in this area, and the deer are very friendly. I mean, not necessarily with other people, but with me. Especially after I started realizing they might be gobos. Now, over here, I'm going to talk about the undead. The ghosts. Now, these ones are more ghostly as opposed to other ones who might be just shapeshifters or dematerializers who really have physical, corporeal bodies. But some of these guys are like ethereal soldiers, essentially, or what the Warhammer Fantasy world calls Karen wraiths, or things like that, looking like that. Entities like that, the dead really like pomegranates. And I know this. And I know this because I have an undead Draco. He has a terrarium. And this terrarium used to be really green. And it had a purple flower and stuff. There was various synchronicities. But at a certain point, the terrarium, besides the dead flower at the center, had a little bit of green stuff. And I kept watering. Nothing changed. It never got better. But when I started offering pomegranate seeds and pomegranate water, and by pomegranate water, I mean just like, you squeeze a few pomegranates into the, in the water. I did 10 for maybe a cup unit size. I'm looking at the time. Okay, I gotta hurry, but I've got a few minutes. And I've been offering it to my white, and his terrarium is healthier now. So, if you guys wanna feed your undead, ghostly whites, you need pomegranates. So you kind of have to think about cultural traditions as food offerings to the whites. But, you know, a lot of us are really kind of, you know, upset, you know, us men and women of the right. And I mean, I guess some of these new people who still think of themselves as leftists, but are amongst us now, listening to our kinds of culture, our counterculture. You know, we can be parents. The first job humans ever had was Adam's job, and he named all the creatures in the Garden of Eden. He was a gardener, man's caretaker. Yeah, we can have kids of our own, but we can raise other things too, because we're the pinnacle of expression in terms of material forms. You know, so you can't become a mommy and daddy. In fact, training whites, raising whites, is going to be essential if you want to be a good parent, because there's ways you can raise them together and stuff like that, but it's practice, and it's practice in a way that's not like a dog or not like a cat. Why? Well, it can have meaningful conversations with you, for starters. It can actually be angry and ruin stuff. Unhappy, unfed Sealy will break stuff. Like I've seen a glass shatter. It's pretty funny. So last thing, I built a portal here because I like to do crazy things sometimes. Not really anymore, but I want to get rid of some old rune stones. But if you remember my article, the last picture, this is the area. 2 years later, it's finally kind of built in, but you can see that things haven't come back, truly. You can see just bare dirt in areas. Like, it's not just pure grassland like the other areas I've shown kind of earlier. But this is a portal to Tartarus at one point. And there was a gatekeeper there. Now here she is, Greenie, that's her name. She is a reaper. She is very interested in the dichotomy between life and death. Hey Greenie, you want me to bring you things next time? You want me to read you something? Okay, I'll read you something next time. Oh, you know about the Bronze Age mindset book? You've been talking to the vampire? Okay, I'll read that. Alright, but you kind of have seen her nature, her habitation circle. It's beautiful. Isn't she so beautiful? This is Greenie. She's a reaper. Anyway, seekers, this is what we can do. This is what's available to us, guys. Alright? Anyway, I'll have more lectures soon. I'll do a new lecture like this next week. Love ya all. Black Pope Vice, out.